Oh, so we were actually recording it. So if anybody wants to watch one of the greatest Lithuanian videos ever, just type Artūras Masiulis, Where Amazing Happens.
Yes, Artūras Masiulis, Where Amazing Happens.
We'll put this video in description.
Only Where Artūras Masiulis Happens actually is the title of the video.
I mean, it's probably the most underrated video in Lithuanian YouTube, in my opinion.
Only 23,000 views.
It should be 23 million.
Yeah, I agree.
If you remember those years, NBA had their promo campaign with NBA Where Amazing Happens slogan, and with that slow music, and these were always great clips.
Inspirational,
with NBA stars.
motivational.
And you're always inspired, yeah. And actually, the guy who edited this video took the idea from the NBA and used it with BC Cholet center airballing 2 free throws, 2 in a row.
Apparently, it turned out that only the first one was the air ball.
It was a clear air ball.
Yeah.
The second one is questionable. The ball might have touched the rim a little bit.
But it's not even about the airballing. It's about the face expression of the first airball.
For sure. Yeah.
Amazing. I mean, we will discuss some of the greatest or weirdest shooting forms and techniques in today's podcast as
You
well.
mean the worst?
It depends on how successful you are.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
By the way, I
videos.
checked some of these worst shooting techniques, and some of them were not shooting that bad. I mean, you imagine them would be like 30-40%, and instead they were shooting like Giannis is shooting this season like 64% free throws with these weirdest techniques of all time.
But sometimes it's hard to wrap your head around the fact that professional basketball players at elite level struggle to make a free throw. That's why I was so angry watching Nick Claxton last season in the NBA playoffs against the Boston Celtics, where he missed 10 in a row, I believe.
Something like that. He was struggling so bad, and he's still struggling this season. And I have him in my fantasy, but
although he's a very promising young center, but he should do something with his free throws, because in today's game, I think it's a huge luxury for a coach to have a player on the court that makes only about 40% of his free throws, because
47.
You're a clear target for the other team. We have some players in EuroLeague also who struggle at the line, but not 40% struggle. Although Nick Kalaitis this season has a better three-point shooting percentage than free throw percentage, which is amazing, honestly.
Yeah, so it's been an amazing EuroLeague week. Last week we will discuss...
By the way, sorry man, great podcast with Malcolm and
Thanks,
Eric.
man.
Loved it, really. And
Thanks.
is Nick Kalaitis American?
That's a good question. Malcolm played against, I think he played against him like since they were 15 or something. So I understand his argument.
He had a good case, and if he has a dual citizenship, I don't see why he cannot be selected as an American player.
Yeah, that was a great pick, actually, a very smart pick.
Yeah.
By Malcolm. Yeah, if you want to watch that episode, watch our videos history section. And yeah, just before the start, what really helps us to grow is just subscribing our channel. I just saw some advanced stats of YouTube, and it turns out that more than 50% of our viewers, they are not subscribers of BasketNews channel, and you're doing a huge mistake, because it's not about missing some of the great URBONUS podcast episodes, but also some other video content which Augustas Šurauskas does. Our video team is doing some great highlight clips, so you should be following basketnews.com YouTube channel and press like button, because it really helps us to grow. And for today's pod, we have some amazing games from the last week. El Clasico, Serbian derby, Belgrade derby. I mean, there should be some name, some title for that derby too, because El Clasico sounds great. Baskonia Efes turned out to be an amazing game. And yeah, as I mentioned, we will discuss some of the greatest legendary free throw or just shooting techniques. And also we will try to trigger some national team fans. But let's start from the Belgrade derby. What would be your impressions about Partizan's win over Red Star? And probably you will all agree that it was not as exciting as the first one in Stark Arena.
Perhaps, but you still had drama, you had everything, and you even had Nedovic buzzer beater once again. Just this time it was not for the win, it was for the head-to-head record.
Imagine that shot deciding
Yes.
who goes into playoffs.
And imagine if Papa Petro was actually doing a stronger push, because he was actually touching Nedovic, and I think that's why Zeljko was so mad about that, because he almost did Walter Eddie Tavares.
You mean 3+1?
on the last shot.
Yeah, it was really close.
That would be crazy.
Because Papa Petro
Yeah.
almost had his hands on Nedovic, so if Nedovic would use more of his Hollywood skills,
I
that could
think
be a 3+1.
Partizan is more than happy to take the win. The head-to-head advantage is obviously important, but the important thing was simply to win the game any way possible. And now Partizan actually matched Zvezda record in the standings, which is kind of underrated, I would say, because we were talking about the Partizan in the first part of the season as sort of a struggling team, lacking depth in the roster, not enough help from the bench, and all these other things.
They were losing a lot of close games.
Exactly,
as
yeah.
well.
And Zvezda was getting better. They signed Duško Ivanovic, Vildosa arrived. They started a winning streak and everything, but now Partizan catch them in the standings after 21 games played. Impressions about the game. Well, first of all, I could go back to the game in Kaunas, and I think Zvezda had more or less similar problems in the first half. That's sloppy turnovers. 10 turnovers in the first half, and Partizan was scoring easy points from these turnovers, and I think they were just giving away too many gifts to Partizan. Even though Nedovic and Vildosa made some shots, Zvezda couldn't catch the rhythm because of those turnovers, and some second chance opportunities also Partizan converted, and they went to the halftime with an 8-point lead, which is obviously important when you're playing away from home, meaning that the support is obviously for Zvezda. The environment is different than in Stark Arena. And I think the third quarter was crucial because for Zeljko, it was about surviving at that moment, because in the third quarter, he played more or less with the second unit. He put Avramovic in the rotation. Punter was in a foul trouble and actually couldn't catch his rhythm in this game. So in the third quarter, Partizan was simply surviving somehow with the second unit to have at least a 1-point or 2-point lead. And these 2 3-pointers in the end of the quarter by Avramovic and Lide, I think that was a massive relief for Zeljko Obradovic, because at that point, Zvezda sort of was breaking the game. They were always one bucket away from taking the lead. They just couldn't make it. A layup missed by Mitrovic, a 3-pointer missed by Vildosa, and Partizan somehow kept their lead to the fourth quarter. And in the fourth quarter, well, it was just point by point, a very close game. And Partizan actually was leading, I think, for 38 minutes of the game, or even more. But the lead never was bigger than 10 points, I would like to say.
Kind of had the game always in their control.
Yeah,
you
but
know,
by a very
small
margin. Yeah,
exactly. And you mentioned Alexa Abramovic. I mean, huge shout out to him. He's coming into the game after halftime, and at first it seemed like he was having some trouble. He missed some open threes, but then he had some nice creation moments for others. Then he had that important 3-pointer. And basically what it gave to Partizan is that Partizan always had a different player in each quarter, or let's say a different period of the game, who provided offense. If you remember, in the start, it was Matthias Lesort with his amazing energy. Then it was Dante Exum, these two in the, let's say, first half. Then it was Alexa Abramovic, and in the end it was Zach Lide who got some open shots, played a really great game. Obviously Zvezda's defense had something to do with that. I think what Zvezda lacked was patience, both on the fouls that were at the end. Branko Lazic fouling Punter, off the ball situation, 6 seconds into the possession. There is no danger there. He's fouling. I think it was they were down 1 in that situation. They go to the line, make 2 free throws. It's a 3-point game. Now you need to make a 3-pointer to tie it. And then the foul by Luka Mitrovic. I don't remember who it was on the baseline. I think
Blažić maybe, or Lazarevic.
Papa Petru. No, I mean Partizan, who had the ball. It doesn't really matter, but they had Papa Petru. They had him doubled, and he was already with the ball in his hands, and Mitrovic just tried to slap the ball in a situation like this. Another foul. They're in the bonus, making another 2 free throws.
I think it was Exum. It was Exum at the line. Exum was hitting all these clutch free throws in the end.
Okay.
Partizan didn't even take a field goal in the last minute.
Exactly.
Because they scored from free throws.
Because Zvezda fouled them, in the bonus, these situations. So they lacked patience. And two more situations where they lacked patience was, Luka Vildoza and Nemanja Nedovic going for these steals in completely unnecessary situations. Like 3 times they went for steals. 3 times Partizan scored a bucket immediately after because they went for the steals, and it was a 5-on-4 situation. So the game finished by 1 point. Every little detail, every little play matters, and Zvezda just didn't have patience in the end, and that's why I think Partizan deserved to win more. They played 40 minutes at the same pace, at the same always finding the guy to score and just keeping the close lead, but managing to actually keep it until the end.
Yeah, and Zeljko Obradović really showed some trust to his bench players. Like bench players played really important minutes in the third quarter when the team was sort of losing the control of the game. He kept the same unit with Smailagic, with Avramovic.
There was a moment where they played, I think, a 5 with Avramovic, Papapetru, Trifunovic, Lide, and Smailagic.
Yeah, exactly.
It wasn't the best, offense in those periods, but
they just survived
trusting these guys. Yeah, they survived.
They couldn't get a field goal, I believe, for the first 3 minutes in the third quarter after the halftime. You could sense that Duško Ivanović team after the halftime will be more aggressive. They will limit the turnovers, and they will be more aggressive on defense. That's exactly what happened, actually. And punter getting silly fouls didn't really help Partizan, because we know how important punter is in the scoring department. But anyway, I would say that Zeljko Obradović had a great game plan. First of all, how he limited Zvezda's big guys, Mitrovic and Petrushev. They didn't have their best performances. Petrushev was dominating in December, in January as well. In this game, he was limited and at the same time exposed on defense once again. And the other thing is Zvezda plays a lot of short roll actions with Mitrovic. Until the mid-third quarter, it didn't really work for them. Partizan was prepared. Only then Mitrovic had some good moments, dishing assists. I think he finished with 5 assists, but only 2 points. So that's a big thing for Partizan. I believe that they had Lide and Lesor dominating, while Petrushev and Mitrovic were definitely limited.
That was a great note on the short roll situations. If you remember, in the first half, Zvezda made like 5 turnovers in those situations. They were trying to pass the ball, up top, not the bounce passes, and Partizan players were so active with their hands, with just taking the ball here, Matthias Lesor, Kevin Punter, and then in the second half they had these situations. They started throwing these bounce passes, but 16 turnovers by Zvezda and only 7 by Partizan. Huge difference.
Yeah, there was this feeling that Partizan was controlling the game, and one of the biggest downgrades, I would say, was their defense. I mean, that's the main issue of their current season, of course, but I mean, some loopholes, and basically it starts with the just pure communication, I would say. And I think that's what also Zeljko meant by saying we're just stupid. We're just playing stupid. And in some easy situations, players cannot agree on, who is switching and who is not. And they allowed so many open shots and easy points. And as you mentioned, some of these open looks weren't converted in points. And that's the good thing is that they are progressing, but the whole defensive picture is horrible. I've checked some stats. They're allowing, they have the worst defensive rating per Vibalytics. They allow 84 points per game, and that's the biggest number that Zeljko Obradović had coaching any EuroLeague team, starting from Panathinaikos to Fenerbahce. The only other season they allowed more than 80 points was in 2003 and 4. So the only good thing is that Partizan is getting better a little bit, and they actually won 6 of last 8 games, and their defensive rating was, I think, sixth best in the EuroLeague. So at least, and you can also see that compared to the beginning of the season, you see less of these communication mistakes they're doing defensively, but it still hurts them, and that was also one of the reasons why Zvezda was still in the game and helped them to stay close in the game.
I think if you're a Zvezda fan, you would expect to win a basketball game in which Vildosa and Nedovic combined 49 points. And on top of that, you have Dobric with 3 3-pointers, and the team is shooting 47% from beyond the arc. You would definitely expect to win a game like this at home with these numbers from your 2 scoring guards, I would say. Not necessarily true point guards. I would call them scoring guards, both Nedovic and Vildosa. Nedovic was always aggressive, penetrating, finishing in the paint. By the way, you don't see too many players in the EuroLeague that finish the floater off the backboard. Nedovic does that constantly. Many players just take the floater straight to the rim. Nedovic uses the backboard, and I think it's kind of genius. At the same time, Vildosa with 4 3-pointers. They were scoring buckets and scoring points, but the problem was Partizan maybe forced them a little bit to play this one-on-one type of basketball instead of involving others.
They switched everything, and then just...
And the guy, Uroš Trifunovic, he was put on the court in the 4th quarter for defensive purposes. Obviously, they were substituting Punter and Trifunovic, offense-defense substitutions. And that was, I think, a crucial moment when Zvezda had the possession. They were still in the game, and Nedovic slipped. Trifunovic went for the steal, and after that, there was no way back for Zvezda.
You know, they actually, I think EuroLeague posted this or on Twitter in the last weeks. In the top 10 of worst players that have, not worst players, 10 players that have the worst defensive impact on the court, measuring by their individual ratings of defense, there is Zach Lille and Kevin Punter in that top 10. And that's you know, switching, replacing him with Uroš Trifunovic, you know, says that Zeljko prefers having him on the court in last seconds, even if it means that maybe you are, you know, not allowed to have Punter in the offense because, you know, maybe there is no dead ball situation and you cannot change it. But you know, what about the choreographic performance by the Zvezda fans? What did you think of all the posters?
I mean, it's smart. It's always nice to have some
choreographic.
It's always nice to have some banter that is sort of respectful towards the opponent. You're obviously irritating them by reminding, "Hey, Nedo hit a game winner in Stark Arena."
Nedovic's smile said it all, you know.
Yeah,
before the game.
But it's nothing. I would say offensive. Yeah, exactly, towards the other side. So I loved it.
I actually loved a more banner for Alexa Avramovic. I don't know very well Serbian, but from what I've understood, and I might be wrong because I think I saw it only on Serbian media. It's like many years ago, Avramovic tweeted something about Partizan as if he was like supporting Restar or something. So somebody had that tweet, actually a big banner with that tweet, and Avramovic was just smiling before the game. So that was a nice moment.
That's another smart.
But that's what I love about the atmosphere. I mean, for the second time in a row,
in EuroLeague,
there were no violence
in EuroLeague,
which makes this case even more interesting. You know why it's only in the EuroLeague. Well, it was also explained by the fact that, you know, when they meet each other in the Serbian league, basically it means who wins, that team goes to the EuroLeague. So the importance and the pressure is bigger. There are a lot of local politics involved that makes the pressure at some enormous levels. But at the same time, I really think that it's still up to the organization which organizes the tournament and how they treat and how they find teams for provoking fans or for you know, them being aggressive.
Well, I think fans probably realize the fact their club does not have EuroLeague A license. They're not one of the shareholders. So if you do some damage, the league will definitely put some red flags on you. Like, do we want a team with some hooligans in our league? And they behave properly in these local derbies when they're played in the EuroLeague. ABA League is a different story, different environment, and you could probably say different culture, but we usually watch EuroLeague. So for EuroLeague, having this Belgrade derby, I think, is huge. Both games this season were very exciting, unpredictable. You never knew what's going to happen up until the very last second.
I mean, their game in ABA League this season was interrupted after 9 minutes.
Yeah.
In the first quarter. So 10 of March, the second part.
Can you imagine
or the fourth part?
Can you imagine what would be the worth of Zach Lide if he could be more consistent and he could deliver these monster performances on a consistent basis? Because I remember him from Žalgiris season. Sometimes he had this extra energy and he was balling like crazy. But then on other nights, you see him missing some shots, not being into the game as much. And in this game, he was so focused and he was just focused on dominating. It was sheer dominance. Like hitting spot-up shots obviously is important, but also some post-up plays, some fadeaway shots, last-second shots with the clock running out. And actually, this season, you have to say, he's proven to be a pretty good shooter. 44.7% for a big man. These are great numbers.
He to me, he was always, not the most consistent one, but definitely a forward that can stretch the floor. And when he has the ball open in his hands, I want him to shoot. And, just having him is such a luxury, I think, for your offense, because he's the one guy, a big guy who offensively can just manufacture a shot for himself at any given moment.
Yeah.
I mean, that hook where he is just holding the ball in his hands and just shooting with a strange technique as well, not the free throw, but he's making those shots. So
can you imagine being a Milano fan and going from Punter and Lide to Voigtman and Luvavu Kabaho?
I'm not sure if it's if that's a correct comparison.
Let's not go there. Maybe we have been in that hole before.
Sorry, man,
and it kind of hurts.
After those two close games, which team chances for the playoffs you like more?
I'm still going with Zvezda. I still think they have more quality in the roster. And also, if Facundo Campasso is available for 6 games in the regular season, in the end, it will make a difference. I think they're a deeper team. So I still go with Zvezda. And they also have the head-to-head advantage. Who knows? Maybe they will finish on the same result. But I don't see both teams making the playoffs. Obviously, at the moment, both of them are trying to catch the playoffs. But
they're just one win away, basically.
I would favor Zvezda in this race.
I'm not sure. I just don't see much difference between these two teams, and obviously with Campazzo coming in, that could be a game changer. With the way Žalgiris has been playing and with the Isaiah Taylor injury, maybe there are 2 spots, in the after those 6 teams. But hey, who knows? Anadolu Efes are playing with fire recently, so maybe even both those teams could get in, because there's this only 1 win away, and there is Maccabi, Valencia. You never know what to expect from those 2 teams as well.
I don't see that happening.
Both.
I just like that, of course, Campazzo will be a huge booster for Red Star, and just in general, Red Star is playing solid basketball after Ivanovic took over. And I just like this growth of communication in Partizan. And if they continue to get better, and if they learn from these losses in close games, like they had some bad endings, I can see them, getting more wins in a stretch of these remaining 13 games. And with Žalgiris struggling, with Maccabi being like 50-50 team, okay, as you mentioned, Efes will get in this top 8, but you never know with Baskonia. I mean, they're in a nice situation to make the playoffs.
I think Zvezda just has to deal with this turnover issue, because 2 games in a row, it costs too much. 10 turnovers in the first half. They had the same numbers in Kaunas, and they were also down by 10 after the first half, purely because of these turnovers. So you must do something about it. You cannot play this way for the first half and then start fixing things only after the halftime. You should take care of the ball, basically, because they could have won both of these games, against Žalgiris and against Partizan. And they would be in a position with 12-9 right now in the standings, and they would be in the top 8. So at least they had to win one from these 2 games, and they lost both, which obviously hurts, but I still believe they are a slightly better team than Partizan.
Yeah, probably I agree. Probably Zvezda have more chances, and simply because you know Partizan has the best offense but the worst defense, and in the long term, I will just simply go with the team that has better defense, and Zvezda have that, and they have Campazzo coming in for the last 9 games, I think, because as we know, February is going
He's
to
4
be
games away from coming back.
Yeah, February is not from this moment. They will have only 4 games. So,
and actually, when you were naming those clubs that are in the playoff picture, you didn't even name Valencia. I think they shouldn't be overlooked. They have a lot of talent. They added Shannon Evans on top of everything. Chris Jones is healthy right now. They're playing very fluid offense, at least at home. They're very difficult to beat, and I wouldn't rule them out. They're also in the race, so it's a really, really big battle for at least 2 spots in the playoffs.
I would even say maybe more.
Maybe
you
even
never
more.
know.
Who knows? Who knows?
Two win gap between 6th and 10th place. So
let's play the game. Start, bench, cut. We have Sergio Llull, Sergio Rodriguez, and Miloš Teodosic.
Start, bench, cut.
Yeah.
That's a tough one, but we're deciding on based on how they play right now.
This season. Right now, yeah.
So at the moment, I would start Miloš because he has a huge impact on every game Virtus plays right now. And I'm benching Chacho. And unfortunately, I'm cutting you. I know what he did in the Classico.
Recency bias does not work for Ritis.
I know what he did in
but
Classico.
Actually, I have
but look at the numbers.
The same answer.
The numbers are really poor if you talk about shooting percentages and everything. So it would be easier for me to have these 2 pick and roll running point guards. But of course, big respect to Sergio Llull for what he did in the Classico.
To me, it's
what do you think?
Start Chacho.
I like your arguments, yeah.
Bench Miloš and cut Sergio Llull.
It's painful to say that.
It's very painful to say.
3 great players that you enjoy watching, and I enjoyed watching for a long time.
If your bench player can change the direction of El Clasico, I mean, man, you have to love Sergio
in this game, though?
Actually, I'm biased about the last game. I'm putting Sergio Llull, and it's because I'm starting Miloš. That's a tough decision.
You're cutting Chacho?
I was choosing between Sergio and Miloš because to me they're kind of the same players. They have the same skills and qualities for my team. And Sergio Llull is just a game changer. I mean, you don't know what you're getting from the bench.
All these 3 players would have a microwave badge if they were on a game on a console. They can get hot in
exactly.
They need only two shots maybe.
But the difference is that Miloš and Chacho, in particular Miloš these days, they run a lot of pick and rolls and they also feed their centers.
Mm-hmm.
And Sergio Llull is more of a scoring guard. He's still trying to do all these things, crazy transition frees, penetrating the paint. And numerous times I remember games from this season and last season where you just see that as being ineffective. But he has so much respect in Madrid, and now he's the captain of the team, that he still has this ability to change the game, to influence the game, and a complete trust from the teammates and the coach to do what he wants. And, well, in Classico, it worked. You cannot argue with facts. He finished with 19 points. He had this crazy run.
He was scoreless in the first 3 quarters. He scored 15 in the 4th and 4 in overtime, and the only player who scored more points combining 4 quarter and extra time, for instance, being scoreless in the first 3 quarters, was actually Linas Kleiza in this
in France
in France against Orleans. I think that was the team. He scored 19 in the
I remember
4th quarter.
Just making threes in that 4th quarter.
Yeah,
but to me it was like the way Sergio Llull actually got hot. It was the first 3. completely illogical shot.
Yeah.
Imagine, I mean, this
It
guy,
was Steph Curry playing
this
that
guy
game,
has
actually.
0 points. It's the 32nd minute of the game. You are down by 9 points, I think, at that moment. And this guy goes on a 2 against 3. You don't even have numbers in transition. And this guy just pulls up after the dribble with nobody to get the rebound, with 6 seconds, with 18 seconds on the shot clock, I think. And he just pulls up, like this, without having hit a shot in that game before, and just makes that shot. And that's all it took.
Sometimes you have to go with the heart instead of the mind. Very simple. It's classical. It's about passion, I mean,
And after that was just...
I believe Sergio Llull realizes the fact in this moment we need some spark, and if I hit a crazy shot, the crowd will get into it. That for the team it will be a huge boost. I mean, you're just going with your guts.
Yeah.
Like you have the feeling that this is the best opportunity for me to score, and you're taking that shot. And obviously everyone's looking at the screen thinking it doesn't make any sense. It's against any logic.
Yeah.
But it's Real Madrid. They play differently than Barca does, and
That's what he made his career on,
exactly.
You could actually say
buzzer
that.
beaters, crazy shots.
But
He was once the MVP of EuroLeague. Probably at one point we had 2 guards at the same level, Spanulis and Llull, and they both didn't fit into any statistical model the way they decided the outcome of the game, especially in playoffs and in finals and in these decisive moments. However, to me, this Clasico is more about Gabi Dek than Sergio Llull having this crazy scoring run. Gabi Dek with his spin move was a nightmare for any Barca defender, and he was listed as questionable before the game because he had some problems recently, but he played 33 minutes, which is very unusual in Madrid's rotation, that a player plays more than 30 minutes. Only Tavares usually reaches those numbers, but Dek was just crucial for Madrid in this game, and I think I would say that was one of the most dominant performances I've seen this season from a player that's small forward / power forward. Right now he's playing probably more minutes in the 4th position, but we know that Jus Mateo plays with these big lineups where Dek is a number 3, so I was really impressed with his performance in the Clasico.
And his matchup with Mirotic, you could say that was actually, the most critical match of the game. And yeah, he scored 23 points, but if you remember last minutes, Mirotic actually got the ball a few times in the post against him because, obviously, as you said, Dek is more of a 3 than a 4, even though Petr Cornelia was not playing, so he had to play some more minutes there. And Mirotic couldn't score in these moments. And to me, this Barcelona game ending reminded me of a Lithuania national team a little bit. One team trying to get Lithuania national team, trying to get the ball into the post, and nothing is happening because, the refs might allow more contact, might not whistle a couple of fouls, and Real Madrid just scoring because they have better perimeter scoring, and they found Sergio Llull in the 4th quarter, and in overtime they found Canan Musa.
Yeah.
And the perimeter play one more time, decided the game and made himself, the most important thing at the end, which we are used to seeing with the Lithuanian national team.
Do you guys agree that Barca was probably the better team for most part of the game?
Definitely.
And it's not the first time
30
this
minutes,
year they're
30
blowing away the lead or even
maybe.
losing the game. Exactly. And what's wrong with Barca?
I don't know. Shara said probably 1,000 times
Guys,
during
25
his
turnovers.
reign in Barcelona that we don't have this killer instinct. And you could simply repeat the same words after this Clasico.
Why you're not signing killer then?
I don't know.
I was a bit pissed about that
I think
because
they have killers in the squad.
Corey Higgins
I
had
want
a
Corey
great ending.
Higgins to have the ball more in the last seconds and not Tomasz Satoransky.
Yeah.
I just found out this crazy stat. Of course, Satoransky is a different point guard. He's not your scorer. You sign him to set the offense and stuff like that. But I checked the stats of Satoransky performances in the 4 quarters. His average in 4 quarters is 1.2 points, 0.5 assists, 0.4 turnovers in 6 minutes. That's crazy. And he's one of the best paid Barcelona players. Vesely, for instance, 1.8 points and 0.9 rebounds in less than 5 minutes. I mean, they're one of your most paid players. And usually if I sign, players on big paychecks, you have to play them in the crucial moment. And they have to have that skill to play decisive minutes. That's the main difference. For example, these guys like Misic, Clyburn, Larkin, they're playing like 8-9 minutes in the deciding quarter. Kostas Lukas, even Nikolaitis Wilbekin in Fenerbahce, they're playing 6 or more minutes. I just think that Šaras already mentioned that he was lacking of killer instinct, and with the last year's squad, he had a chance to reshape a roster a little bit, but he didn't bring those killers to this team. So that what surprises me. Corey Higgins was doing really good job, but I would say that Madrid's defense, especially when they brought Pierria on the court, I think it was in the overtime, they really did great job defensively containing Higgins. And Gabidek contained Mirotic as well. Great in the low post. I think that Mirotic traveled twice in the decisive minutes of the fourth quarter. So they were doing great job defensively, and you think that, of course, you can finish the game with Mirotic and Higgins, that should be enough. But if you're a big team, if you have a chance to sign top players, I mean, you have to look for killers. Laprovitola is usually a killer, and he didn't have a great game.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, it's an unfair complaint, because if you have Laprovitola and Higgins, you have players that can close games and kill games. It's the question whether you put them in the best position to close those games. And when you have your best player, and you mentioned Satoransky's salary, Mirotic is the most expensive player in the league. So sometimes you're just forcing it, playing through him in the crunch time. And to me, doesn't matter how good your stretch 4 is, when the time comes to close the game, it's about the guards. And to me, Corey Higgins needs to have the ball in his hands more. Second option is obviously Laprovitola. Definitely not Satoransky. He's a different kind of a point guard. So I don't agree that they don't have killers on the team. It's maybe that they don't play killers basketball. The system is fine. You play your system, but when there's 2 minutes left and it's a close game, it's not about the system or running sets. It's about the best players taking best possible basketball decisions. And to me, Corey Higgins is a proven clutch player in the EuroLeague. If you look at his Moscow days and you see some game winners for Barcelona, not only in the EuroLeague, in the ACB League playoffs as well, I think basketball should be a little bbit more simple with 2 minutes left in the game. That's what Madrid does.
The worst lineup for Barca in this game was Satoransky, Higgins, Kalinic, Mirotic, and Nagy.
Yeah.
Minus 12 in 4.5 minutes. And most of that time came in the overtime. Would you agree that maybe, Laprovitola, Higgins in the backcourt would make a little bit better closing lineup maybe
for sure
for Barcelona?
For sure.
Because probably what Šaras is doing is valuing defense in the last moments of the game more than the potential offense. He thinks that with the system we run, we can get a nice shot even with this 5 on the court, because you have Nagy, you have Satoransky, you have Kalinic that you can risk from them a little bit. And instead of, let's say, playing Shanley, Lapro, and Higgins on the court at the same time, or maybe even Abrines, who is actually playing, converting on those shots that Šaras creates for him. So probably, he's just valuing defense, and, sometimes in the close games, it hasn't really paid off, let's say. up until
I
this
just
point.
think that it was also related to the fact that Laprovitila was just not having great game.
Yeah,
that
lately
night.
he's
And
I think
in those four
games.
quarter minutes, he was very average. But at the same time, in the crucial moments, probably have to show more trust to those players who can decide games. Because, for example, his plus and minus in the second half was like -7, second worst in the team. So I believe that Shara's decision was based on that, and he decided to go with different guys.
Lapro recently, I don't know, 3 or 4 games that he's playing, let's say, below his usual standards.
Yeah, and I could also add that in the previous seasons, it was always a big help for them having a sharpshooter like Kyle Kuric on the court. This season, he's barely playing, and his absence is actually felt. I mean, they're trying to use Abrinas in a similar way as Kyle Kuric in the previous seasons, but to me, Abrinas is not as consistent as Kyle Kuric is, and with Kuric struggling and maybe declining a little bit, you're starting to think that a very good team needs an elite shooter at 3-point specialist. And I'm always just thinking every season about Matt Thomas and his potential comeback to EuroLeague and how he could be a great fit for basically any team. And yeah, if Kyle Kuric is healthy and ready, I think he could make a difference in some situations as a shooter with his off-ball movement and everything he does.
And just for the last note about this game, I just love this generational shift in the end of the game. First, it was Sergio Llull with this crazy 4-quarter performance. And what I actually loved the most, besides him scoring the ball, that he made this spark also by some defensive stops, stealing the ball from Mirotic. He actually blocked that shot, that Abrinas shot. It was also a very important situation. So he also showed this example of, you can love his skill, you can try to learn to be as skillful as Sergio Llull is, but every young player, every up-and-coming EuroLeague player also have to learn how to play your heart out and how it actually can make the difference in this EuroLeague where the margin of level, the difference of the level is not so great. So all these little things like putting extra step, both individually or team-wise, like we see examples of Žalgiris, Baskonia for the many times, making these crazy turnarounds. It's something which is very valuable in the EuroLeague, but this Janan Musa thing, I mean, when Sergio Llull made his this second crazy 3-pointer, he showed that loco sign or something. Loco. I think that's how you say crazy, right? Loco? Está muy loco? No?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Musa with 9-point performance in the extra time. I mean, he's really loco, I would say. He had open look shots in the overtime. Easy 3-pointer. No, he missed that shot. Instead, I think that they got the offensive rebound in that possession. Instead, he went for a one-leg runner contested shot. He made that crazy shot. Then these
that was a lucky
two
shot,
3-pointers. I mean, and he was showing the same sign actually. And he seems like the next Sergio Llull on Real Madrid team with this charisma. He's also playing a lot from his emotion.
Yeah,
he has that. You're right. He has that crazy part.
Yeah,
a little bit of craziness on the court. He does what he feels is to do at the right moment, and it could go really bad, but
Exactly.
if it goes well, then that's a huge spark.
And Madrid is the best place for you to play this way.
Exactly.
Actually, I just realized right now that
there are few teams to actually play like this in EuroLeague.
Yeah, like Efes,
Baskonia,
Madrid, Alba Berlin. If you go lower, but it's not for a player of this caliber. And I just realized that 12 years ago, probably, I genuinely believed that Sergio Llull was drinking Red Bull during the game.
Huh.
Only at some point I realized that he's a Red Bull athlete and he's obviously drinking water from a Red Bull shaped can. And
with the way he plays,
I did believe that he was drinking Red Bull because he comes back after the timeout and he never stops. He's running. It was 12 years ago, before his knee injuries and everything. And I did believe that, the dude's drinking Red Bull casually during the timeout.
Baskonia Efes game was also great. A lot of interesting stuff. So that's why I asked you guys to rank the most improbable or incredible things you saw in that game. Let's make your top 3.
I mean, it's hard to rank. We had given Marcus Howard his flowers before, and he has maybe 2 subpar games, but he still makes those shots incredible in the fourth quarter, and later Darius Thompson close to an insane. I mean, imagine he got 4 more rebounds and he just posted a 19, 10, and 16 line in a EuroLeague game. I mean, 16 assists is amazing, and he made some difficult shots there. So he made
this crucial block.
Tibor
applies.
To me, this block is
30 centimeters bigger dude.
Yeah.
To me, probably that's number one with the number one.
Yeah.
We have to give Matt Costello his flowers. I mean, 2 months ago, I remember picking him as probably the most underrated guy in the EuroLeague, and a game like this shows to me why. I mean, I don't see a team who wouldn't want to have a stretch big like him. I mean, he is that type of guy who can win a game for you by himself. Obviously, he depends on others, but just a great player. And
if I'm Efes, I'm making the case for Costello for the summer, for the free agency. He has the contract with Baskonia until 2024, and usually they put these crazy buyouts in those deals there in Baskonia. But I mean,
if you're Efes, it's easy. Just sign the players that Baskonia scouted before.
And
Larkin, Bobois, Plyce on the court.
And it just shows, Matthew Costello just shows how a stretch power forward, can blossom in Baskonia.
To me, the question is, how many more games can Efes throw?
That's probably, number one is Darius Thompson block, but number one question of this game is, how long are you going to play with the fire?
Yeah.
I mean, this was the closest game to an NBA game you will find this season in the EuroLeague.
True.
I mean, we are talking how that EuroLeague style with the defense and aggressive style is maybe more interesting for us and stuff like that. But to see a game like this every once in a while is an amazing feeling. With the shot making was incredible
for sure,
and obviously the defensive intensity of both teams did not help. I mean, both teams did not really care about one side of the court, and it was
both teams scored 16 3-pointers.
All it took for Baskonia to get open was one pick and roll where the big slips the screen and Efes go into a complete
exactly.
They don't know what to do on a slip screen. So it's 20, how many games? 21 games played, and probably Efes are going to go with this type of play at the end of until the end of the season, and just hope to arrive in the 8th spot.
Last year they were in completely the same position, 10 and 11 after round 21. The main difference is that now they have Will Clyburn,
and
so that's a huge
3
upside.
teams got excluded from the season in February.
It did help them.
Yeah,
that's true. But still, I think that they will be there right on time.
I mean, Rokas Giedraitis grabbing 18 rebounds also has to be high on the list.
This is on
He's
my top
never
3.
known as some sort of a rebound specialist or anything like that. It's six offensive rebounds, 12 defensive rebounds.
And again, so easy to take for him those rebounds when nobody boxes you out.
And it's on guards of Efes, actually. It's not only about bigs. Check some of their guards, trying to... I'm not even saying box out. They're just standing there. And these guys like Giedraitis and everybody else, they were just jumping over their heads. And what's also great about Giedraitis is that he got these 12 defensive rebounds. And what's important, he really knows how to run the floor fast. And usually from these situations, a lot of easy transition points has started. But this Giedraitis record is amazing. I mean, I checked the record list and I didn't see... I mean, we don't seriously consider Giedraitis as some like forward. I mean, he's not the typical forward. In Lithuania national team, he's playing more of a shooting guard role. So I would say he's a wing player, and I didn't see any other wing player with more than 18 rebounds in the early history.
Is crazy.
That was just crazy.
And I still looked at the picture of Darius Thompson block on Tibor Pleiss. Of course, it helps that Pleiss doesn't really jump when he's shooting, but you have to time your jump perfectly to not foul the guy and to block the shot, knowing that he's a giant center shooting the ball from beyond the arc. And, you know, you have these iconic moments and photos with blocks like LeBron versus Iguodala, Tayshaun Prince versus Reggie Miller, Manu Ginobili versus James Harden. Now EuroLeague has the block. It's Darius Thompson versus Tibor Pleiss. Only it's a regular season game. If it was a playoff moment, it would be, I think, even bigger. But for Baskonia, it's still a very big win. Right now, having all this uncertainty around Pierria Henry, they were on a losing streak. I think they entered this game with 4-game losing streak. So it's huge for them to get a win against Efes.
In a game where Marcus Howard does not really get going for 35 minutes of play. And it's a second straight game for him where he's struggling with his shot, but that's normal, you know, for a guy that, you know, depends so much on an outside shot. They're just going to be nights off. So important that he gets back on a rhythm soon.
And on top of my ranking, I actually have the fact that after 35 minutes of play, Baskonia had 76 points. So they finished with 114, which means they scored 38 points in the last 10 minutes. And they finished the game with 31 assists compared to Efes 16. That tells a lot about the ball movements, the way Baskonia is sharing the ball, and how you can see the clear team effort out there instead of deciding games on ISO plays.
And Efes still had a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter. I mean, from
Few
this
times.
point, you cannot afford to lose games. You have the better players on the court. You're up 10 with 7 minutes left. I mean, when it happens once, fine, I can live with that. But when it happens 2 times, 3 times, 4 times during the season, just at some point, you have to stop with this complacency and everything and get serious. Simple.
As I said before, they get serious when they play Barcelona.
Yeah, and Olympiacos and these other teams. I do see that, but I also see the standings. Losing to Valencia, losing to Baskonia doesn't really help you.
They actually lost to Baskonia twice, and they're in a playoff conversation.
And to Valencia
so
twice.
That might hurt them in the long run.
And these 2 Spanish teams are trying to catch the playoffs as well.
But as Shane Larkin said, we're all raising the same questions every year, and the final outcome is the same. So,
yeah,
still believe in a three-peat.
It is possible. I do believe in that. It doesn't matter if they finish 8th, 7th, 6th, or 3rd. As long as they make the playoffs, they have a shot at a three-peat.
If they are in the 8th spot at the end of the season, I just, regret getting the number 1 seed.
True.
That's obvious.
That's
obvious.
True.
Not fair.
What is impossible actually is our following topic, just to trigger national team fans all around Europe, and especially those European powerhouses.
Nothing about Pierria Henry?
It's sad situation, and especially when you see guy cheering for his team with Tadas Sedekerskis on sidelines and being in the huddle. I mean, and knowing how important Baskonia as a team is for this guy, it was sad that he's suspected by all those things, and he might get fined with a huge fine.
What's the usual fine for this? If you are,
I mean, if
fake sample is probably
it's something I've never heard
worse,
before in Europe. So I believe it might be even worse. It might be some levels of fines they're getting just for a positive doping test, and then if you fake sample, it might be even worse. So
there was even some rumors that he could be banned for a lifetime.
For life, yeah, I saw that. I'm not sure how real, how legit is this, but a lot of uncertainties in this situation. So it's really hard to say anything. You cannot kind of, advocate and defend player if he really did that, but at the same time, until it's not clear, the final decision, if there's no, the research is not being done yet, I mean, it's also tough to speculate on this topic.
Yeah.
So yeah, just going to the topic, we are going to speculate a lot. Thomas Walkup was asked by famous Greek commentator if he would like to play for the Greek national team if he had an opportunity to represent the country. He politely responded that he's American. But since this is a topic that triggers basketball fans, let's take 5 European powerhouses without naturalized players and find 5 greatest additions from the EuroLeague for them.
I mean,
and
let's find Lorenzo Brown for each country.
Yeah, Lorenzo Brown is not available right now.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah, right. He's Spanish.
Yeah,
Spanish.
he's
Lorenzo Dantes Maron.
Maron. Exactly. So we have 5 teams: France, Serbia, Lithuania, Italy, and Greece.
Look, for France, it's settled.
Yeah, for
Joel
France.
Embiid.
If Joel Embiid chooses United States, in that case, who would you sign for them from the EuroLeague?
I wouldn't sign anyone from France. Well,
you brought Embiid.
Exactly.
So if we're talking about France, why do you sign anyone?
My answer, when you said, well, for France, it's easy, I thought you were going to say they don't need anyone, because that was my answer.
Yeah, but at the same time, they have the opportunity to play Joel Embiid.
And they have Wembanyama and...
who they're having on their backcourt? I think they're missing a point guard.
Yeah, in a need of a quality point guard. That's but who could
I would actually send Thomas Walkup over there. I think they have...
But Thomas Walkup, does not have anything with the French. With the
No,
France.
but
I mean,
that's
you don't
the
have
task.
any
That's
ties.
the task. You just
yeah,
get
but I was
the passport.
trying, make players that have some kind of ties at least with the country.
I mean, what kind of ties some of these naturalized players had signed for national teams?
Let's say for Serbia, I put Matthias Lesort.
Look,
because of the
he's
way
French.
he's
naturalizing
players.
But you cannot naturalize
Yeah,
the
you
French player
have
who
to
played
pick
for
a
the national
player
team.
Did he play?
that is not locked yet and is available.
Yeah.
Did he play?
Lesort for France?
Lesort.
I think
I have a feeling that
it's enough to play at least one single FIBA qualifier, and that's it. You're locked. So I think he did play at least one game or something.
he played in qualifiers in FIBA World Cup 2019. That's it. He's done.
So
Kevin Punter then.
Yeah, that's with Fournier.
For France?
With Fournier.
For Serbia.
For Serbia. Okay. But
for Serbia. But for France, I have an idea, actually. I have an idea. Thomas Walkup, it's a good choice. A defensive point guard.
Who can set up the offense.
Next to other defensive players like Terry Tarpe and these other guys, it could work. Pressuring the ball. Not necessarily the...
It's more about next to Evan Fournier, for example.
Yeah. But to me, I think the better fit is Paris Lee, just basically because he's Paris.
Yeah. That's also great.
It would make a lot of sense.
Basically because he's Paris.
Paris Lee, I have Paris on my jumper.
You're supporting Paris Lee, right?
I do support him after what he did last week.
Amazing performance.
Yeah, so that's settled. Paris Lee.
Okay.
It fits.
Either Paris Lee or Thomas Walkup.
Yeah.
What about Serbia?
You mentioned Punter, as he has some ties. What do they need when everyone's healthy?
That's a good question.
When everyone's healthy and available, I think a stretch 4. Because Nemanja Bjelica, who knows, maybe he's done with the national team, and all the other options are really not so good. Like they played Marko Jagodic-Kurica in the Eurobasket, so maybe we're talking about a stretch 4. Matt Costello was unavailable because he played for Ivory Coast.
True.
By the way,
I
go with Alec Peters.
He doesn't have any passport.
I don't know. Did he play for any national team?
I think it might be some.
It's
minor
not only about
national
having
team.
a passport.
He's Bosnian, naturalized Bosnian
player. Did he
player.
play for Bosnia? That's the question.
Let's check.
So, if he
while
did,
you check, what about Lithuania?
Mike James
is straight locked in.
They need a point
roster.
guard and they need a scorer, and they have good connection with Donatas Motiejunas, and it's easy.
I mean, Donatas Motiejunas doesn't play for the national team. So
he's doing this diplomatic. He's doing this diplomatic job.
You said this like Donatas Motiejunas.
He has a great relationship with the coach, and they're in good connection with Mike. Easy.
Yeah, but we are talking about naturalization, and he has good connection with Donatas Motiejunas. Sounded like he's a father or some kind of...
It's all about networking, because he's Maksvitis.
What about Keenan Evans, guys?
I mean, he's not going to help me in the upcoming World Cup, so that's sad.
That's an option.
I can naturalize Mike James, then when he retires,
does Mike James want
I can
to play in
take
the
Keenan
summer?
Evans.
No, he doesn't.
Mike James actually had was in serious, or at least he was seriously pursued by Latvia national team. Could you imagine Latvian national team with Mike James on the team? That's a fun team to watch. One of the most fun team to watch.
They're
Porzingis.
already fun to watch when everyone's there.
Exactly. And you add Mike James on top of
The
that.
games are finishing 125 to 123.
That's amazing.
40
Put
minutes.
them against Slovenia. Wow. If EuroBasket 2017 quarterfinal game was amazing between those two teams, can you imagine them playing with Mike James? That's something. But since he didn't go there, I am taking him to Lithuania.
I'm also taking him.
And Greece.
Greece
Greece
have plenty of almost naturalized players that do not count as naturalized players. Let's be honest, like Tyler Dorsey. Who do they
his
need?
mom is he's a half Greek and his
yeah,
mom is Greek.
I know that.
And I'm thinking that you're doing the same mistake that Nevan Spagia did. Actually, he had to apologize for his words. So
I'm not saying he
be
doesn't
careful
have any
with
Greek
triggering
connection.
Greek fans.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying he's from California. He's an American, but he has Greek ties. I mean, I'm not even saying that Ignas Brazdeikis is a Lithuanian, he's a pure Lithuanian, like others say, oh, he's a Lithuanian player. He doesn't even speak Lithuanian that much. So, and he counts as a naturalized player, by the way, for Lithuania.
Because he played for Canada youth team.
Yeah. So, anyway, I'm not being offensive or anything.
No.
It's just that.
I mean, Ritis was the guy who said that Lorenzo Brown in Spain was perfectly okay. So
to me, it's fine. I don't have a problem. But that's a discussion in the past. So for Greece, what do they need?
Will Clyburn. I want Will Clyburn. Because I think that they're
Will
loaded.
Clyburn with Giannis? How do you fit them?
Giannis is playing as a 4.
You make Will as a spot.
Free.
You make Will a spot-up shooter?
I think so. Yeah.
To me, that does not make any sense.
He would make this sacrifice, I think.
But is this the best option?
I'm just missing the best wing after Giannis Antetokounmpo, because I love Slukas, Kalaitis, and Dorsey backcourt. Centers, I mean,
but to me, it's the only thing they lack is spacing, and for good spacing, you need a shooting big because you're obviously playing 30 minutes with Giannis. And
size-wise, Clyburn is a great fit.
But he's not a shooter. Like,
come on, he's making threes by incredible rate and percentage this year. And for a few years already.
But why would you put Will Clyburn as a spot-up shooter without a ball in his hands? Like, that does not make sense to me. I'm sorry.
I mean, if I have a chance to put Clyburn to any national team, I'm not raising those questions really. It depends on what you have next to him or what you're choosing
Giannis next to him.
I mean, what you have is a naturalized player option.
Otello Hunter.
Otello Hunter. He's getting old.
But he's stretching the floor.
He's stretching the floor
He's
very
stretching
well.
the floor.
What about Jonathan Motley? He's not stretching the floor that much, so maybe that's an issue. Although he's a really decent center, which I actually see for Italy as a perfect fit.
Italy definitely needs a center. That's an easy pick. Motley.
Yeah, no brainer.
Semi Ojale, but he's not a big.
Again, Matt Costello would fit perfectly.
I'm. That's what I said. You know, who wouldn't want Matt Costello on their team?
I'm not so sure, but the clear option is a shooting big, somebody who could stretch the floor for better spacing. Because
Zach Lidey, undersized.
Maybe no.
I actually see Lidey for Serbia.
Not? But Serbia has.
He's not I wouldn't say he's not the most reliable guy who can stretch the floor, but adding his effort next to Jokic defensively, I don't know.
I would prefer Zach Lidey to Greece, actually. Yeah, that this season he's shooting 45%. That could work.
Who do you have for Greece?
Actually, no one. I had. I just imagine how if Sasha Vezenkov,
One of the biggest
would have been the perfect fit, but. And that's then it's a huge gap between anyone else I choose.
The thing is, it's usually most teams that naturalize players they sign point guards, American point guards, and rarely it's a big man. Like Slovenia needs a big, so they had Anthony Randolph, Mike Tobey also shooting bigs, But usually we're talking about point guards. And when you're trying to pick a stretch 4 or even a stretch 5, the talent pool is really not that big.
Yeah.
Because with point guards, it's so
easy choice.
easy.
That's what actually makes this conversation even more interesting,
Yeah.
because some of these teams, they don't really need a guard.
It's true. It is
And
true.
for your beloved Italy team, do you
Kyle
have anybody?
Hines.
Kyle Hans.
For one summer.
Okay.
Or one
and Dan
good-
Motley.
Tournament.
And then Motley for
Okay.
the
And after that,
This is
Motley.
a
Yeah.
for the
whole
next
project.
15 years,
Yeah.
10
Okay.
years.
Motley with Banchero.
Oh yeah, they actually have
Banchero will be an
Should be.
Should is a naturalized player or no?
I'm
He
not
will
sure.
count
I'm not sure.
as one or no?
Again,
Don't think so.
we cannot question that he's half Italian, being Paolo Banchero. But I don't know how FIBA handles these cases.
I'm not sure.
Not sure.
either.
American.
Anyway,
Italian.
It's always
Yeah.
tricky.
he's expected to play for Italy eventually, maybe even trying to get to the Olympics in Paris. Who knows?
Okay, we are done with improving national teams, and let's finish
Or destroying national teams, others would say.
and triggering all those fans.
I'm leaning towards that side.
Let's
To
wrap
be
it up.
honest.
I want to be a GM of a national team, signing players, revolutionizing.
Ritis
the
would
game.
have 2 players who are a quarter of their nation, and then 1 naturalized player probably.
The last NBA topic to wrap it up. Jeremy Sochan is a great player. First of all, amazing rookie. He's on a great stretch right now. He had a 30-point game, and he became the first Spurs rookie since Tim Duncan to go over 30. He's on a nice stretch of the last 5 games, averaging 19 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, making 59% of 3-pointers and 89% of free throws.
And he's the future of Poland, by the way.
And he's the future of Poland, being American Polish player. But of course, everybody is talking about his free throw mechanics.
Or his hairstyle.
Hairstyle is another impressive thing about him. But
I think the last guy that had similar hairstyle in San Antonio was dating Madonna in the 90s.
Do you know?
doing some
By any means,
crazy stuff
what was
with
the
Carmen
name
In
of
the
that
league,
guy?
he's known as the Worm.
Oh, that guy.
yeah, there was one decent guy.
He won some championships in Chicago.
There was some story with Carmen Electra
in Detroit.
in Chicago, right?
I do believe that.
Yeah.
So the weirdest free throw shooting techniques.
Yeah, the topic is
First
the
of all,
weirdest
shout out
shooting
to Sochan for
techniques.
being so brave, because
Yeah.
you're gonna be mocked by some fans and people watching basketball just because of your unorthodox shooting routine, but his numbers improved by like 20% or 30 even.
Yeah.
So
Before changing his mechanics, he was a 45 free throw shooter. Then his numbers leaped to 75, and now, as I mentioned, in the last 5 games, it's incredible 89% accuracy.
But actually, he knew he was going to be on every social media post the day he changed his routine. But he is shooting the way, you are progressing on the shooting mechanics drills you are maybe doing before the practice when you are young. You start with these one-handed shots, and then you progress just moving backwards. And so it's nothing, it's weird to see because nobody else does it, but it's actually the same movement you are doing when you are shooting with 2 hands. So
yeah, exactly.
Nobody does it, but for him, that's working. And but to me, the worst free throw shooting form of all time is Chuck Hayes.
Chuck Hayes,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
I'm literally watching his video right now.
No doubt about it. Like
Literally watching it.
that 2 motion shot.
I love how he
freezing
confused all
here.
those players who try to box out.
Damn.
Every time it's a line violation for the other guy.
It's like he's playing online and his internet connection is lost midway
for half a second, and then he reconnects.
Yeah. There's a lag, and
Andris Biedrins had similar disconnection.
Yeah, Andris
You could
Biedrins,
mention
that's
that.
a good choice. I would say from the players that were pretty successful making the free throws, but they're not only free throw routine, but at the same time the jump shot was crazy, unorthodox and strange. Sean Marion definitely.
Mm.
Basically pushing the ball from his stomach,
Mhm.
something like this. But he was making shots.
Talking about actually, Chuck Hayes has 62%
Yeah.
career free throw percentage.
It's not that
Giannis
bad.
has 64 this season,
It's
for
not that
example.
bad.
And talking about pushing the ball, Joakim Noah
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
for sure.
with 2 hands,
It's like Marion did it from his stomach, Noah from his chest, like this.
a bit higher.
Yeah.
And Ronnie Brewer, another member of Chicago Bulls, he also had, seemed like a 2-handed shot, 2-handed free throw routine. So that was weird. And just not, I don't know how to say, to me, Italian word brutto comes to my mind.
Sounds brutal.
Exactly, but just doesn't sound as good in English.
Yeah. Rick Barry, of course, is a legend. He had this granny style, like we say in Lithuania, and I found a great quote. Rick Barry actually started shooting his free throws in granny style since high school, and he had an amazing quote actually. If you're shooting 80% or better, great. If you can't shoot 80%, you're not a good free throw shooter. That's simple. If you can't shoot in the mid 70s, you need to think seriously about it. If you're a 60%, 50% free throw shooter, by God, you should try anything. And Rick Barry was actually 90% free throw shooter with this granny style. So that was an amazing story, and probably Sochan was also inspired.
You know
by
what
some
Sochan
greatest
does?
examples.
What Sochan does? It's similar to how Shaq would take his free throws. It's just that he used his left hand for like support. He didn't really have the ball in his both hands. He was shooting with the right, and the left was just supporting, touching the ball a little bit. And Shaq was not a good free throw shooter, obviously, but again, his shooting technique is more than questionable. However, at the same time, you do realize that when he's holding the ball in his hands, to him, the basketball, the size 7 basketball, probably feels like an orange to me.
Yeah.
So if I'm shooting an orange, I would need to make some adjustments also.
I will always remember how Shaq said, I averaged 30 without the free throws.
Yeah. And at one point, there was this narrative in the early 2000s that Shaq hired an individual trainer for free throw.
Yeah.
To improve his free throw percentages. And he did have some slight improvement, but then he stopped and he said, well, if I'm going to start making free throws, I'm going to be a perfect basketball player, and that wouldn't be fair.
Talking about underhanded, this Rick Barry shot, we have a guy in Europe, Chinano Onuaku, who is not right now in Hapoel, in Tel Aviv. Hapoel,
He was in
I think.
Jerusalem, I think, or Tel Aviv.
He was
Always
in
mix them up.
Sassari as well.
Yeah.
And
He was always close to becoming the EuroLeague player, actually.
He's shooting 76%
That's solid.
this season.
That's solid. And I mean, I think that Jeremy will nail this shooting form because he's a big learner, big student of the game. When he started his rookie NCAA season, he was not even listed as a top 100 player in the United States, and he made a huge leap throughout his rookie season. And what actually also helped him to become a lottery pick was a great job he did in the training camp of his agency before the draft. And that's where NBA scouts and NBA execs noticed that how fast he can actually progress and learn and to improve. And this shooting form change that only proves that he can nail things really quick, and that will help him to become more complete player, because since he's already a huge impact changer and defensively. So yeah, it's gonna be very impressive to see him at the national team basketball as well, sooner or later.
Next to Victor Wembanyama.
Exactly.
I'm just praying every night that Victor Wembanyama doesn't land in Charlotte. Everything about Charlotte Hornets is boring and disappointing. And they are in the race. They will have a lottery pick. I'm just hoping it's not going to be the first pick.
It's Houston, San Antonio.
I'm sending him to Texas, whether San Antonio or Houston. Texas. I said it on purpose.
Everything's bigger.
Yeehaw! Texas, baby.
Okay, guys, Thanks a lot for this great, entertaining conversation. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe our channel. And see you very soon. This week we have a Q&A episode. We will make this Q&A questionnaire for the upcoming podcast. Don't forget to become Beyond Plus members. Actually, we have great WhatsApp chat community where Augustas is also sometimes discussing about some games with our Plus members. This community is growing really fastly, and it's great not just to give them extra content, but have these inner discussions we have in our exclusive Beyond Plus members group. So stay tuned and be with Basket News.